Hey, what's up, Unbroken Nation? So I'm just really curious for yourself personally, like what drives you this? Because I know that, and we kind of glazed over it, so I'm gonna go back to it. Like
Yeah.
there are people who are listening, like, wait a second, you did what on a boat and when and by yourself and how long? So I'm really curious, like, what is the thing that drives you? And I want to rewind to kind of that spot, right? 22 years old, you're getting in this boat to literally row yourself across the Atlantic Ocean alone. Why?
Yeah. So I can identify with a lot of those threads of like how someone might end up being so intensely into endurance. Like there's definitely people in my family that have addiction, and I can probably identify with having an addictive personality. And um I mean, there is something to be said about like I was reading about like post-traumatic growth and using experiences to kind of propel you forward. And I would say that some of the things like in my teen years formed in me like that kind of inner resilience and self-reliance that through harder challenges. And so I think it was almost training ground for me to be able to do endurance. And a lot of people that I've seen too who have had any kind of traumatic experiences, like I know how to kind of dissociate from my body, and that's very helpful in endurance. To an extent, like you don't want to be so dissociated from your own body that you don't know if you're doing something that could be potentially dangerous. But I think that was, it was ingrained, and it was almost like a survival kind of instinct in my teen years. And so once those endurance events came to the picture, it was like applying the same skill sets of hard outside life experiences and applying it to an arena that you can actually create. You could be creative, and you could create experiences. And I think what was particularly interesting for me for the row is I was so drawn to the idea of, you do a marathon, you could quit whenever you want. You could see a coffee shop and just, and then you could just go home, take a shower, and you're on your way. But with the row, what really drew me to it is the impossibility. Like the worst form of punishment is solitary confinement. And so I wanted to know, like, if all I had was myself, could I do it? And like I just wanted to know how much we have in us to do these things. And if I had a follow boat, I probably would have quit, because if quitting was that easy, like at times I felt like quitting, and I was like, well, it's going to take them maybe 2 days to get here. By the time they get here, I'm going to change my mind. So what's the point? But I liked being in a situation that I was either going to overcome it or die. Like that, I wanted something that intense because I wanted to see how far you can be driven. Yeah, a part of it was curiosity. Maybe a part of it was wanting to develop and work on things that, I felt like I needed personally, like more, um, yeah, maybe self-confidence or um, self-awareness. And I am an introvert, so I do appreciate that kind of, I don't think there's a lot of extroverts rowing oceans, or even some of these endurance challenges where you can't talk that much. And so I did appreciate that more opportunity to reflect and just kind of be in my head a little bit too. So,
Yeah, I actually resonate with that a lot. There's something about, for me, in my own experience at least, and I see this in a lot of people who come from backgrounds where they had to become self-reliant, self-sufficient to sometimes to a detriment. I personally have learned how to navigate this of being hyper independent and
Yeah.
recognizing, like, because eventually, and especially as you get deeper into endurance sports, like, you have to have teams. Like, it's just a part of it, right? You have to have support, i.e. the person with you with the cell phone, right? And the list goes on and on. But there's something about figuring it out on your own that just reinforces your capability. And for me, I don't know if this was for you as well, but I've just come to find, and I haven't done 100-mile runs, and I haven't biked across America. I certainly have not rollerbladed across Florida, but with the many of the things that I have done, even like this podcast, it's endurance, 365 episodes a year. Like, it is about pushing yourself into what can I do? How far can I push mentally, emotionally, physically, and then understanding that process. And I think here's what it's interesting and where I'm going with this. I feel that many people view most endurance events, no matter what they are, as people punishing themselves, right? And I've always found them as this is where people discover what they're really made of.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that is something that I am very pro, like, this is fun. This should be fun. If you're not having fun, there's already parts of life that we have to do, that aren't fun. So if you're going to be doing these things in your free time, they should probably be fun. And so like, even I do some of the similar events like David Goggins does, and he's always super, serious, and I'm military as well. And so I'm just like, you have way too many endorphins to be that, unable to just smile. And I find a lot of the ultra runners out of all the sports, there's out of, the cycling and swimming and all that, there's some very, like, down to earth, happy go lucky, really relaxed type people. So yeah, I it doesn't have to be that way. And if it is, I would just say work on your mindset more than anything, and finding the joy. And um even if it's not these endurance things, just finding whatever it is that brings you joy and also gives you the opportunity to feel like, I mean, just knowing how we have a short life, and yet there's just so many things that you can do and experience, and um, it's just a beautiful thing.